For most of the 20th century, organizations were built around monitoring outcomes and discrete events. We tracked quarterly numbers, approvals and rejections, graduation rates, production output, error counts. An event happened, it was logged, we evaluated performance after the fact. That was sufficient when decisions were slower and mostly human. But the 21st century environment is different. Decisions are automated, model assisted, continuous, and often invisible. Small, probabilistic interpretations compound, and increasingly, AI systems influence what happens next. The value of the organization is no longer just in outcomes. It's at the decision boundary, the moment where state mutates or doesn't. And most organizations are not instrumenting that moment as a first-class object. That's the shift. Before we go further, let's define one word clearly. State is whatever persists and affects the next decision. In a school, a student's mastery level, placement status, intervention flags. In finance, a credit tier, a risk classification, an approval state. In healthcare, diagnostic categorization, treatment eligibility, priority status. In enterprise systems, access levels, account classifications, risk tiers. If nothing persisted, there would be no system. State is durable memory. When something changes and sticks, that's state mutation. That's where architecture matters. When I was building a structured writing tutor that provides live feedback to students, I had a hard constraint. Generative AI could assist. It could provide feedback that was customized to the student, but it could not mutate state. It could not change the student record. And that constraint forced me to map the terrain around the decision boundary. The Emergent State Machine is the map that emerged from that constraint. Most systems collapse measurement interpretation, and authorization into a single block. We call it the model. Measurement happens. Evaluation happens. A decision happens. State changes. The boundary is implicit. When everything is the model, accountability becomes vague. We debate model quality, we debate bias, we debate tuning, but we rarely isolate the decision boundary itself. But now, look at the separated version. Signals measure, interpretation evaluates, authorization decides. Authorization is the gate. Only authorization can mutate state. The claim is simple. The decision boundary must be explicit and structured, not philosophically in data. Now, we formalize the boundary. This is the turn box. The turn box binds signal version with a foreign key, interpretation version with a foreign key, authorization version with the foreign key, a timestamp. We see signals, authorization, and interpretation each elevated to first-class objects. It is not logging, it is binding. If state changes, it must cite a turn box, and the turn box cites the exact versions in effect at that moment. If you think in terms of tagged releases, authorization versions function similarly, but bound per interaction. This is the minimum architectural unit required to instrument the decision boundary. 3 versioned objects, or 3 version domains, 1 binding object. Then state mutation. This is how evolution becomes inspectable. Systems do not just output. They evolve. Each transition cites a turn box. Each turn box cites specific versions. Most dashboards show you current state. This shows you the path. If you can see the path, you can reason about trajectory. If you can't, you're evaluating outcomes without understanding how they accumulated. That distinction matters in a model-assisted world. Now we introduce a version shift. Everything is identical until turn 2. At that boundary, authorization version changes. From that point forward, the trajectory diverges. Notice the asterisks in state. The divergence is not just local, it persists. This is not chaos, it is governed divergence. Because versions are bound per turn, we can isolate drift structurally. Leadership can reason about regime changes again, not abstractly, relationally. This is what it means to instrument evolution. Everything we've seen, trajectory, divergence, drift, resolves back to this, the turn box. The boundary made explicit. The moment where measurement, interpretation, and authorization are bound. The minimum architecture required to manage state mutation in the 21st century. This is not just software architecture. It's an architecture for reasoning about evolution. Anywhere you have persistent state, decision boundaries, accumulated history, you can think in turns. Organizations evolve this way. Institutions evolve this way. Even eras unfold through boundary decisions. You don't have to rewrite your systems tomorrow. You can begin by structuring how you think about change. Once you see evolution in turns, it becomes difficult to unsee. That's the invitation.